Yahoo minasan, this is Yuki, your realist simulation view elf, and today I'm going to tell you about comedy anime that are the longest running so far. If you like my content, please like, comment and subscribe. So the thing is that comedy genre is really hard to discern from other genres in anime because most of the time it's usually overlapping, and mangakas and anime creators tend to use sometimes gags or jokes or comedy just to take off the tensions if the topic is too heavy, or to create more suspense or meaning to the dramatic side of the story when it comes later. So let's start. And one of the longest comedy anime that has been released, and that is definitely worth your time, it's called Gintama. And Gintama was released in 2006. It has 10 seasons and 367 episodes. And before I dive into explaining why I love this anime so much, I would like first of all to give you a brief summary about the story. So in an alternative universe version of Edo period, Japan was visited by a race of space alien known as the Amanto, and instead of the USA. A ban on the swords and the fall of samurai happened. Kintoki Sakata fared as the White Yasha, an impressive swordsman making his living as self-proclaimed freelancer who's taking any kind of small jobs in order to pay his rent. Along with him are traveling samurai in training Shinpachi Shimura, who's also the leader of a crazy fanboy group for Anaido, and Kaguya, a young alien girl who all the time she's either eating or beating up somebody. It sounds like a really eccentric and weird group to be around. However, I think this is what makes it really interesting, and also the encounters all different types of groups in their society, the people working in the red light district, the rebels, and also the Shinsengami. And I think if you know a little bit of Japanese history, then you know who are the Shinsengami and what are their identities and roles overall. And the interesting part also is that they kept the same names from the historical characters to the anime. So if you meet like Kondo-san or Okita or whoever else, it's almost the same name existed as a real life person back then, with a very different personality of course and roles. So I hope that you pay attention to that, and I think you will learn a bit of history while watching Gintama, inevitably, because there are a lot of history related jokes, a lot of political criticism, a lot of things going on. So first of all, it's a very well written story, and the character's development is very well done throughout the season. There is not a single side or main character who didn't get proper maybe arc or maybe some series of episodes or got involved with one way or another. Too many characters, but none of them are wasted. This is something I really appreciate in Gintama. When you look at it, especially the very first episode, you are thinking, how can I remember all of these? But the events that happened later and the stories, you would never ever forget them, even years later after watching it. Very witty humor, and also a lot of perverted humors. I'm not gonna hide it to you. I was really shocked in the first episodes when I was watching it as a teenager. I couldn't handle that level, but I think you eventually get used to it. You eventually jump over those type of jokes in order to get the real meaning behind them. There are plenty of historical references and terms. You can always stop the screen and read the long explanation, especially in the very first 20-30 episodes. And once you get a grasp of some of the terms, then you will not need to stop the screen anymore, because actually they will stop showing them. But just in the beginning, I know a lot of international fans, they don't really know these things, and so translators are putting a little bit of extra effort into that. What is copyright? Yeah, that's a good question. You might assume that legally in Japan you don't have the right to bring in other characters from other anime to your show, and you don't have the right to, give your character maybe the same clothes or the same vibes as another character to a certain extent, not to the point where it's screaming copyright infringement. But well, Gintama did that. They just did it. And they really laughed at every single popular or non-popular shonen fantasy anime you have heard of in your life. There are a lot of references and a lot of criticism and a lot of jokes around it. Honestly, I appreciated them. I feel like once you know the big popular three, things like One Piece, Naruto, Dragon Ball, you just get them. It's not like a really hard brainer for you to guess what they are making a fun of. And the other point is that, and no matter what happens, remember it's a parody. Please don't get unnecessarily offended. It's a parody. They are literally mocking everyone, including themselves. There are episodes where they are laughing about things in Gintama itself. They are literally attacking their own founders. And for your own information, Gintama was stopped twice from production by the government because they did a very serious political joke, which they shouldn't have done. So they were stopped from production. The anime was banned for a little while, and then they came back, and then they just did it again. So I feel like people eventually came to accept that there is nothing extra sacred about history, and you should be open to talk about it in different ways and different perspectives. But again, it's not easy. I think they kind of learned the lesson, but it's not like they stopped making jokes about like Edo era and shoguns or whatever. The second longest anime that I would like to introduce to you today is called Ranma Demi, Ranma Half. Anyway, yeah, so Ranma Half was released in 1989 and it has 161 episodes. And if you have heard the news, it's getting a remake fairly soon, I think next year or something. They started already on doing a remake for it. They said they're gonna keep almost the same story while taking out the fillers. I don't know how it's gonna turn out, but honestly I loved so much the older version. And Ranma is about a guy named Ranma Saotome, who's a top-class martial art and a prodigy at the Saotome Anything Goes School of Martial Art. While training in China, he and his father meet a terrible fate. They accidentally fell into a cursed spring. Now Ranma is cursed to turn into a girl when splashed with cold water, and only hot water can turn him back into a boy. I feel like my gender bender obsession started here. I bet it did, because I have never ever had this kind of plot before Ranma Half, like when I was younger, when I was in my high school, whatever. And I think when I like it so much, Ranma Half, and watch it again in the Japanese version, then I was like, yes, this is it. I should find more shows like this. So things are only complicated further when Ranma discovers that his father has arranged for him to marry one of the Suwon Tendo's 3 daughters in order to secure the future of the Tendo's dojo. Though Suwon learns of Ranma's predicament, he is still determined to go ahead with the engagement and chooses his youngest daughter, Akane, who happens to be a skilled martial art artist herself and is notorious for hating men. Well, things are even more complicated. Ranma Half follows the hilarious adventure of Ranma and Akane as they encounter various opponents, meet a new love interests, and find different ways to make each other angry, all while their engagement hangs over their heads. So, yeah, as you have guessed, this is a very funny setting and also funny plot, and I cannot imagine the number of times I have laughed hard at this while watching this show. Is it family friendly? No. Is it fun? Yes, so you should watch it. So, the main reason why I started watching Ranma Half, it was very simple. The romance part. I was very curious about Akane and Ranma getting together and stop bickering like little children. I was thinking that in the beginning, but by almost when I was, I think at episode 130 or 125, something like that, I reached the point where I was like, guys, please keep fighting. I love the dynamic. So I was not anymore looking forward to them really getting together and stop fighting and becoming adults, but more looking forward to them keeping things going the way they are. So it's the same mangaka as Inuyasha and Rinne in case. The next anime I would like to introduce to you today is called The Disastrous Life of Saikokutsu. And Saikokutsu was released in 2016 and it has 120 episodes. But when I say 120, it's mostly those small episodes of 4 or 5 minutes, which is not too much but can be confusing if you go on other sites. But if you're on Netflix, actually you can watch them in 3 seasons. Each one is 24 episodes. Like first season is 24, second 24, and the last season is like 2 episodes. So you have a total of 50 episodes to try on Netflix. So I think that's a better option, honestly, and it's more enjoyable because it's all coming together. Not as much confusing as researching all the 120 separately. And to go a bit more on the story, in order to be able to explain it a bit more, Saikokutsu is a typical 16-year-old high school student. Well, when we say typical, he's probably anything but typical. He has psychic powers, and he can use them to get whatever he wants, but he also knows everything that people are thinking, like literally everything. No surprises, no secrets, no normal human experiences. So he's kept his power in check since childhood, but with the temptation of high school and all the exciting things that happen at that age, his mind is sort of bending a bit the rules, and also sometimes spoons. So yeah, this is a more of a character-driven type of show. So it's not as much about what's gonna happen next, rather than what is this weird character is gonna do next. And I think the three main characters besides Saiki that you have to keep an eye for are his very close group, Nendo, Kaido, and also Kokomi Terahashi. And I'll explain now why. So Nendo is this really idiot character who at the end of each episode he's like, guys, bros, let's go eat ramen. And that's what he says every single time. It's not even a loop. That's his usual reaction after classes. And it gets funny. The more it's repeated, the more it's funny. And you have Kaido, who's this really Shimbiyu character, living in his own world, getting ambushed by the Dark Union, and every bad thing in his life that happens, including his bad grades, is a mistake for the Dark Union. So if you love Shimbiyu character like me, you will enjoy so much watching Kaido. And then we have Kokomi Terahashi, who's like the super popular pretty girl of the class, whom everyone is wooed by her. Except that Saiki himself, he always reads people's minds, and he knows she's so egocentric and she loves the attention she's receiving, and so he's not impressed. He just knows what she's thinking. He knows that she wants that attention and she wants people to just admire her and just to do whatever she wants. And because he was never impressed by her, and because he was never screaming over her, she sort of lost it. She decided she really wants to make him fall for her. And this is the thing, this is where people are sort of split up. There are people who ship him with Kokomi, and they think, well, they kind of make up for each other like kings because he's sort of the background character, she's more like the front character. But there is another girl who's like a Gyaru, and she's more energetic, Genki girl type, who actually gets along with Saiki a lot more. And I think I ship her at some point with him much more. But anyway, I would go for Kokomi in the end of the day. Aside from my own shippings, I think it's a really funny anime. It has a lot of fantasy, a lot of psychicness kind of thing going on. Some weird meteor coming to hit the world, and some dangerous experiment happening on the side. So without spoiling you any further, I hope that you really watch it and you really enjoy it. So, another great recommendation I would like to give you today for long comedy anime is called Beelzebub. And you might have known the word Beelzebub from one of the Devil's Hell, or also the Devil of Gluttony. But then again, here it's a famous anime that was released in 2011 and it has 60 episodes. In Ishiyama High School, entirely populated by delinquents, where non-stop violence and lawlessness are the norm. However, there is one universally acknowledged rule. Don't come across first year Tatsumi Oga, and Ishiyama's most vicious fighter. One day, Oga is by a riverbed when he encounters a man floating down the river. And after being retrieved by Oga, the man splits down in the middle to reveal a baby. Sounds a bit familiar to Dragon Ball in some way, except this is not a spaceship, but just a person. It's kind of weird. Which crawls into Oga's back and immediately forms an attachment to him. So this baby, who looks totally so strange with the green hair, clashes to him and refuses to let go. And though he doesn't know it yet, the baby is named Kaiser, which is the Amperana Beelzebub, the sixth, it's called Baby Beel for short, and the son of the Demon Lord. So this is his identity. But to put it simple, if you like fighting anime and friendship built on the power of fists, then this is for you. Like every single alliance he built up, or comrades, or supporters, didn't come in because he was just charismatic, but because he just beat them. If he beat them, they recognize him, then they are his ally. And then in the next fight, they come and fight with him against the new enemies. This is how the entire Beelzebub plot goes on. So, until the very last episodes, or last arc I would say, where they exclusively focus more on the baby Bill story, you would almost forget about him being. So opening look absolutely silly every single time, but they grow on you by the end of each arc. You will start loving him and singing along them. Especially I was surprised by MBLK Baby U opening, which is from an old K-pop, an old K-pop group. I didn't expect that, but I really loved it. I don't think they are operating anymore, but back then in second generation, they were something. That's all what I have to say about this, so yeah. I think you all already know this title, but it is called Assassination Classroom. And I know all the bitter feelings that have been left by the ending, so I'm not gonna mention anything about it, but it is technically still a comedy anime. So it has 2 seasons and it was released in 2015 and it has 47 episodes. Just a little reminder about the plot of Assassination Classroom in case you don't remember what it was about or you have never watched it. Having already destroyed the moon, the octopus-like Professor David Kurosensei has now threatened to destroy the Earth by March of the following year. In the light of this mission, the students have found that killing him is easier than done. Not only can Kurosensei move at speed of up to March 20, but he can also resist almost every earthly weapon. Ironically, he can also prove to be one of the best teachers Class 3E has ever had, training the class to excel in both their studies as students and skills. And it's about these students who almost nobody ever believed them except this alien teacher. And this alien teacher, while knowing that these people are likely to kill him at some point, he still did his best to teach them all sorts of life skills and advices and many things. I think this was a really nice, amazing journey while watching Assassination Classroom with all its 4 great openings. I remember the last opening, its lyrics are very much fitting for any kind of graduation ceremony, leaving the school, leaving the university kind of vibes. Feel free to use that one and check out the lyrics. I don't think I need really to put so much reviews on this particular one because it will be otherwise very much a spoiler, but I would love for you to try it and if you can tell me how you feel about Assassination Classroom overall and if you have any criticism, just in case. Another famous anime that you must have heard about at some point or another is called Konosuba, and Konosuba is a parody isekai, which means that it is mocking the genre of isekai anime that has emerged a lot since the recent years. And you know the typical plot of an isekai anime is where a person, mostly a guy, gets hit by a truck-kun, and then he gets reversed to this ideal fantasy world and becomes the hero there, and he defends the princess, kills the monsters, kills the demon lord, and he gains some special abilities that usually he wouldn't have in normal human world. And that's how typically the plot goes on. But what if actually you get killed in a really funny, embarrassing way, and on top of that you go to this other fantasy world, but instead of becoming like a hailed, like amazing hero with some amazing abilities, you actually make the worst choices ever, just like you did in your real life. So Konosuba was released in 2016. It has 3 seasons and 31 episodes. After a dying pathetic death, high school student and reclusive Kazuma Sato finds himself sitting before a beautiful but obnoxious goddess, named Aqua. Provides the NEET with 2 options: continue on to heaven or reincarnate in every gamer's dream, a real fantasy world. Choosing to start a new life, Kazuma is quickly tasked with defeating a demon king, who is terrorizing the villages. But before he goes, he can choose 1 item of any kind for him to take in his quests, and the future hero selects Aqua. But Kazuma had made a grave mistake, because Aqua is completely useless. Well, just to explain a bit the logic here. So Kazuma was thinking he's playing it smart. He was thinking, if I can pick any item to take to the fantasy world, then I must pick the strongest item ever available. And what can possibly be more strong or stronger than the goddess of the world herself, Aqua? She's like god of water by the Axis, hailed by the Axis church and everything like that. But what Kazuma didn't know back then is Aqua is just a goddess in name, and she hardly have any kind of amazing attacking power or anything. Like, she has some form of power, but it's not necessarily useful on everyday basis or in battles or anything else. So, yeah, that was his first terrible choice. And the other terrible choices he's gonna make later, as you might have guessed it, is that he's supposed to have an adventure party. So he's gonna pick like a magician and a crusader in order to go and kill the monsters, because there is no way he can do it by himself and just Aqua. And Megumin, which is the witch, he's gonna pick the magician. She's one of the strongest magicians he can ever pick. However, she has one perk, is that she can only make one strong attack per day, and then she falls off. And that's it. She cannot fight the monster anymore, and there is no guarantee that one attack will literally kill the monsters. Especially if you have many, I mean, like, even if you have one, there is no guarantee it's going to kill him or annihilate him. And then you have the Crusader, who's a knight, who's to be at the front page in order to kill the monsters. But what if she is a masochist? Then that makes it even harder, you know. But she enjoys getting beaten by the monster she's supposed to be beating. So Kazuma is so fucked up, and he has to survive in this world because he has no other choice. His other choice is just to die. And he's not even allowed to die, he keeps respawning. He keeps coming back to life in the same world with these same people. So in the first season they focus slightly on Kazuma and his circumstance on this new world. And in the second season they talk about Megumin and then a bit about La Latina. You know who's La Latina. And there was a special off season which is just about Megumin background story. And then we go back to the third season, which focuses more on La Latina and her upcoming and her links to the princess and everything. And we are expecting the new season, which has never been announced. Hopefully it would get another anime to be about Aqua, because we need to know more about Aqua. We hope that she's not been always as dumb as she is now. Again, I don't think I need to introduce Kaguya-sama Love is War. It's a rom-com, a really famous one, because although we would call it a rom-com, it doesn't have as much romance in it as comedy. So comedy would be the major theme of it. Like, that's the main reason. And Kaguya-sama Love is War has been released in 2019. It has 3 seasons, 37 episodes, and 1 movie. And I think that although there are this much episodes, the story has not been wrapped up yet. And the main revelation and the main background stories and how things move forward for serious are in the manga. I think that's a really good strategy to convince people to just go ahead and buy the manga, which I'm not sure I will do anytime sooner, but yes. So Miyuki serves as the student council president, alongside his vice president Kaguya. Daughter of the wealthy Shinomiya family, excels in every field imaginable. They are the envy of the entire student body, regarded as the perfect couple. However, despite both having already developed feelings for each other, neither are willing to admit them. The first to confess loses, will be looked down upon, and will be considered the lesser. With their honor and pride at stake, Miyuki and Kaguya are both equally determined to be one to emerge victorious on the battlefield of love. Well, this is a summary, again, in case that you don't know about it. Just in case. So it gives you loads of ideas how to trick your crush into confessing, how to get closer to them, how to get them to make statements they don't think about deeply enough. I really love them. I really love their antics. I really love the way they're bickering and how far they go into planning in order to make them do something extremely silly and basic. But for me, the highlight of this anime is not just Kaguya and Miyuki. Of course, they are really important, but also it's Ishigami, who's the weeb character who accidentally happens to have his own harem. I hear that he would have at least 3-4 girls falling for him. She's kind of interesting. I didn't expect that, but once I saw a little bit of the spoilers, I was really impressed. So keep an eye on Ishigami. And as much lazy and useless and tactless he might seem, he's actually very thoughtful. And most of the time he makes really interesting statements and ways, kind of to patch things up when you don't expect it. And then the other character you have to pay attention to is Fujiwara. And honestly, if anyone out there in the world ships Fujiwara with anyone, I'm ready to kill them, because it's just simple as that. Fujiwara is not a shippable character. She's not even a romantic character. She's just an idiot doing a bunch of idiot things. Well, they're not all the time idiotic things, but I cannot see how anybody can romanticize Fujiwara. This is my own opinion. So, and she's so chaotic, and because she's chaotic and she's such an extrovert, then she helps make things work in ways that nobody ever expects. I'm realizing just now that my pronunciation is a bit off on some of the words, so please bear with me. Sometimes when I'm nervous or speaking too fast, I just end up doing that. So, my upcoming recommendation is an underrated title. I actually doubt that any people I know or have met so far heard about it, because it feels like something you dig up if you are really a huge animation fan, and if you really want something that the mainstream fandom is not hovering around. So I'm gonna give you the title, and please let me know if you have ever heard about it or watched it. And it is called Working, or another title is Wagnaria. So Wagnaria has actually been released in 2010. It has 3 seasons and 40 episodes in total. And as you might have guessed, the setting is, of course, the workplace, more like Baito part-time. Due to his love for small, cute things, Sota Takashi cannot turn childlike Popura Tanishima down when she recruits him to work for Wagnaria, a family restaurant located in Hokkaido. Takanashi takes particular joy in doting on the older Popura, which only fuels her complex over how young she looks. He also quickly learns that he must stay on his toes once he meets the rest of his colleagues, including that katana-wielding floor chief Yachio Todoroki, the intimidating head chief Jun Sato. He looks so much like the chief from One Piece, Sanji. Yeah, he looks so much like Sanji. I'm actually baffled by people not saying, hey, this is just Sanji. And he's also a chef, he's a cook. The dangerously well-informed and subtly sadistic Suo, who's a chef Hiromi Soma, sous-chef Hiromi Soma, yeah, and the adamantly and the lazy manager Kyoko Shirafuji, and the waitress Mahiru Inami, who has a painful fear of men. And it's not just fear, it's more like misogi reversed, which, yeah, it's a very extreme case where she cannot handle to be closer to men in her surroundings by like 10 meters or something. If you come in her parameters, she's likely to hit you and beat the hell out of you. Maybe even kill you at some point. So just be careful. So you might assume this is just a series of episodes of gag anime where they are just doing some kind of repeated jokes, but I don't think that's the case. I think there has been significant character development between the first and second and third season, and also the focus of the main story slightly shifted around different seasons, and the relationships evolved, and you can see the progress eventually. I feel like it was a nice ride in the sense that it was really relaxing, but at the same time you can see how these characters are moving forward without it being way too fast-paced or too slow-paced in some sense. Well, it can be a bit slow-paced for some characters, but for the majority things are moving forward in a very even way. Another small remark I would like to add about Wagnaria is that, as you might have guessed, it's a character-driven story. So you are focusing on all these eccentric, unusual characters working in the same place and also interacting every day and trying to, kind of get on each other's nerves or be friendly or support each other's romance, or sometimes how to deal with customers and how to manage unexpected situations. And I think during season 2 and season 3 they slightly go beyond the workplace and they go to their family settings and the area they live in, and then there are more background story put forward. So this is just a small remark I wanted to add. The final long comedy anime I'm going to recommend to you today, it's another underground anime that has not been too much explored or advertised online, and it is called Arakawa Under the Bridge. And Arakawa Under the Bridge was released in 2010. It has 2 seasons and 26 episodes. The plot is revolving around Ichinomiya, who's the son of a wealthy businessman, who holds a firm belief in his elite status. As such, he is determined to avoid becoming indebted to anyone. But one day, after a run-in with some mischievous kids on Arakawa Bridge, he ends up falling on the river He ends up falling in the river and running underneath. Luckily for him, a passerby is there to save him, but now he owes his life to the stranger. And when you're talking about the stranger, in this case, it's an atypical kind of stranger. It's a stoic tracksuit wearing homeless girl known only as Nino, who lives in a cardboard box under the bridge. And it's kind of, how to describe this? So the anime vibes themselves and the character and the drawing is a bit weird. It's a bit strange compared to other animation you have watched so far. But it sparks your curiosity. It makes you really think, what is gonna happen next? Who are these unusual characters? What are they planning to do? Is this businessman planning to stay his whole life living under a bridge? Is this his new lifestyle, new conviction? Or is he going to stay temporarily there until he feels satisfied with himself paying back his debt or whatever? So, I don't remember as much about it as I used to years ago, which is a bit sad. I think I should rewatch it for honest. I rarely rewatch anime, but I think sometimes I just should. But I remember it was really hella funny. No, not plot driven, it's mostly character driven type of story. Also, it's kind of relaxing. You don't need like big brains to analyze. I mean, there is definitely a meaning, there is definitely a message that the anime is trying to get across, but it's not said in any way in a straightforward way. So you learn it by watching the different stories and by thinking, what does this character actually symbolize? Why did this character actually make this life choice, and why does it think this is its own form of freedom or its own form of self-expression or whatever? So I hope that you watch it and you give a chance to most of the recommendation I gave you today, and have a nice day. Bye bye.